With the end of the 24-hour deadline issued by Israel, all eyes are on the likely assault into Gaza. Israel's leaders have declared that Hamas will be wiped off the face of the earth and Gaza will never go back to what it was. But before this invasion begins, let's take a look at how Israel and Hamas's forces fare against each other. Currently, the standing Israeli army has 169,000 troops, and since the war began, the IDF has called on 460,000 reservists. And on Hamas's side, nearly 16,000 armed militants are expected to fight off Israeli forces, and another 6,000 Islamic Jihad militants are also expected to join in. Israel is going to execute a tri-service assault on Hamas in Gaza. For this, a ground assault, an air assault, and a sea assault is planned into the Gaza Strip. Ahead of the likely Israeli ground assault, Gazan civilians have been asked to evacuate southward from North Gaza. Israel Defense Forces are likely to deploy tanks, infantry and artillery across the border. Israel is also prepared for urban warfare against any and all Hamas presence. But Israel's real challenges begin post-troop deployment in Gaza. Hamas's Al-Qassam brigades are notoriously famous for using explosive devices in the battlefield. Ambushes are expected as the war is taking place in a dense concrete setup. Hamas can also deploy a sniper network on the rooftops of Gazan buildings. Gaza's infamous tunnels are also expected to play a vital role in this conflict. And Hamas can also repeat its 2014 tactic of laying out anti-tank mines on the roads leading to Gaza. For Hamas, on the other hand, the evacuation of civilians becomes an impediment as it gives Israel a free hand to pound Gaza with heavy artillery. With essential supplies such as food, water and electricity cut off, Hamas militants will have to survive extreme conditions while fighting the IDF. And Israel's air superiority continues to be a decisive factor in this fight, as Hamas militants can be bombed with ease from a distance once civilians evacuate that area. For more on this, we spoke to Colonel David B. DeRoches. He is professor of Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies at the National Defense University. Listen in.
Well, so when you give those numbers for the Israeli forces, only a fraction of those will be deployed against Hamas. So, Israel's concerned that there might be another intifada on the West Bank. They're concerned about Hezbollah firing over from Lebanon. As a matter of fact, the Hezbollah-Lebanon consideration is probably their greatest threat. So I would say that a majority of those 400,000 troops are going to be deployed elsewhere. But the bigger issue is when you move into a city, particularly against a group that has had a lot of time to prepare, you move to a position very quickly of tactical equality. So you can drive tanks through cities, but the main gun on a tank can't elevate to a 6-story building. It can only elevate so high. And forces that are dug in there can counter very effectively even a modern mechanized army. You take heavy casualties fighting in cities. The second consideration is even if Israel manages to deploy its firepower, to say they get fired on from a building, they destroy it, Hamas is determined to ensure that there are civilians in those buildings so that what will be a tactical victory for the Israelis will become a strategic defeat as the news photographs of dead Palestinian civilians are broadcast around the world. So this is a very, very challenging, difficult task, and it's going to be hard for the Israelis. It's going to be extremely hard.